Hello everyone, welcome to the Triangles Meditation Group. Today is June 29th, 2021. And there is a new feature that you can use to have access to a transcription, a live transcription of the meeting. And you just go to, I believe it says transcriptions, and then you just turn on live transcriptions. So why don't we just begin with a moment of silence to link up with the group and set our intention to work together as a spiritual group. We know, O Lord of life and love, about the need. Touch our hearts anew with love, that we too may love and give. So the work we do each week together is twofold: to introduce the work of triangles to people who are new to it and to aid them in the forming of triangles. So a warm welcome to any of you who may be new. And if you would like to form a triangle, we also simply ask that you put your name in the chat box, and hopefully 2 other people on the webinar will agree to link with you each day as a triangle member. And we also provide a platform for those of us who are already members of triangles to come together each week and work together in a meditative visualization in the support and strengthening of the planetary network. That's our real purpose. So triangles is a necessary activity in our world today, which we know is one of much fog and mist, glamour and illusion. And our work together with this forming of these lighted triangles, a network that extends around the globe, we do what we can to help dissipate those fogs and mists. The triangles work is a simple visualization technique that uses the power of thought and prayer to uplift and transform consciousness. 3 people agree to link up with each other each day, visualizing a golden triangle of light, linking the 3 of them. And then they link with all the other people throughout the world who are also working in triangles, and visualize the network surrounding the planet, releasing light and goodwill to all open hearts and minds through the use at the close of the visualization of a world prayer known as the Great Invocation. So it's quite simple, it only takes a few minutes each day, and it can therefore be fit into even the busiest of schedules. So again, we welcome your participation, and those of you who are already Triangles members, we welcome you to form more triangles if you so choose. And today, after our meditation, we have the great honor to welcome our guest, Joshua Vervoordt, who's a student of the Ageless Wisdom and has had a keen interest in magic and spirituality from a young age. And he's currently working towards a successful manifestation of the molecular relationship, as well as other spiritual projects. And also we welcome Nick Taylor. He's a student of a few different spiritual disciplines, including the works of Alice Bailey and the Theosophical Society, and is a member of Subud, New York. He has a Master of Social Work degree from Touro University with a specialty in clinical work. And Nick is interested in the fusion of esoteric knowledge and everyday psychology. So we look forward to hearing what they have to say on the topic of group work. And so now, as we always do, let's work together with our brief visualization. Let's link together, visualizing the planet as a sphere of lighted energy. And within that sphere, let's visualize the three primary planetary centers. Shambhala, the planetary head center. The spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart. And humanity, the planetary throat center. Visualize the energy of these three spheres circulating, expanding, their fields tapping into each other, filling the triangle with light. And now visualize within the center of that triangle a five-pointed star of the world teacher, bringing together east and west, past and present and future, radiating the energy of love wisdom. And at each point of the star, the sphere of his activity stands an outpost of his consciousness, the five planetary centers. And visualize the energies radiating out from the center of the star through the 5 points. London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo. Visualize these outpouring energies, enlivening small groups, gathering everywhere, aiding them to focus and direct the energies into the consciousness of all humanity, solving its problems, creating right human relations, restoring peace on earth. We sound the invocation of light, projecting a bridge of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy. Radiance, we are, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. So when we're considering the topic of group work, we know that it relates to many things dependent upon the nature of the work being undertaken. For there's many groups in the world today acting at all different levels of consciousness. And many of us working within triangles are also members of many different types of groups. We have groups that work on the physical plane, largely exoteric in nature. The family might be one such group, or any other service groups that we're involved in. But there are other groups that work on the physical plane that are attempting to do esoteric group work, more spiritual group work. And then, of course, there are many groups working on the subtle levels of reality, the inner planes, of which we might also be a part, even though we might not have a real conscious recognition of that work. But the fundamental underlying concept of real group work from the perspective of the spiritual hierarchy is certainly that work that entails contacting the soul. For it's only through an ability to bring the soul into the work that we do that a group can really be known and participated in. Triangles work is an example of a type of group work, as we know, for it is infused with soul energy by those members in the group who can contact not only their own souls, but also the souls of their group partners and the soul of the greater group, and projecting a line of light into the spiritual hierarchy, the source of the triangle's work itself. And this is a very large group, relatively speaking. It's global in scope, and its auric field, therefore, is much wider and more extensive than that which individuals in any group could ever encompass by themselves. So it has much potential for bringing through soul energy simply by linking with it. The triangle's members are also, as I said, parts of many other different groups. And these smaller groups can contribute to the vibrancy of the network as a whole. And the network can also contribute to the stimulation of the smaller groups. It's rather easy to form and become part of an exoteric group, as we know, such a group as this webinar, or being affiliated with a spiritual organization, of which there are a myriad number in our world today. It's not difficult, but to affiliate ourselves within a field of esoteric training with a true spiritual group, that's something altogether different. It's not easy, as it demands much from the seeker, and all kinds of hindrances can arise within the group life and within the individual members. People today don't always give sufficient attention to the commitment entailed in undergoing a systematic method of spiritual training. Often one might seek to enter into this type of training without sufficient preparation or self-discipline, and therefore they won't be able to measure up to the offered opportunity. There's an interesting article written by Blavatsky entitled Practical Occultism, in which she highlighted some of the necessary prerequisites for the proper functioning of a true spiritual group. And you can see from the listing how exacting was her understanding of a true spiritual group. And I'll just state a few of them for all of our consideration. She said that the first step was to establish within the group a sacred space, and we might call it a protected space, one wherein the spiritual currents can flow without hindrance because the atmosphere has been purified. And so she includes this physical plane and etheric atmosphere But she's also talking about the atmosphere on the astral and lower mental planes, which need to be purified as well. And she stated that unless the greatest harmony reigns among the learners, no success is possible. And she called the spiritual group one that works together in such unison that it becomes as the fingers of one hand. And she wrote, "Thou shalt impress upon their minds that whatever hurts one should hurt the others. And if the rejoicing of one finds no echo in the breasts of others, then the required conditions are absent, and it's useless to proceed." She said that the co-disciples in a group must be tuned by the guru as the strings of a lute, each different from the other, yet each emitting sounds in harmony with all, making their minds open for the harmonies of the wisdom to vibrate as knowledge through each and every member of the group. Those who desire to acquire the knowledge leading to the occult powers have to renounce all the vanities of life in the three worlds. None can feel the difference between himself and his fellow students, such as saying to themselves, "I am the wisest. I am more holy and pleasing to the teacher or in my community than my brother." Key qualities for participation in the group life were meditation, the observation of moral duties, gentle thoughts, good deeds, kind words, goodwill to all, and the entire oblivion of self. In a sense, these thoughts describe the atmosphere within the inner ashrams, those ashrams that exist upon the inner planes. And it's therefore helpful, perhaps, to use the energies of cancers to consider these things, because esoterically speaking, Cancer is a sign which is associated with the inner home, the inner house, the place of protection, the lighted house. And the Tibetan master, we know, works within these inner ashrams with his students. And I just wanted to close with a couple of phrases from some of the keynotes that he gave to his disciples for pondering, which describe, it seems, the atmosphere found within these inner sanctums. He said that to enter into an ashram, you must do so with calm. You must speak low, and only if a need is there. He said you must enter the stream behind the door, and in order to do so, you must wash away the stains of the travel which you undertook to arrive at that point. And then he said, you enter into a room in shadow, full of peace and calm, of books and enterprise. And at the desk, the teacher sits and works and thinks, projecting thought, working within, above, and all around, while through the room pass many, for it is their right to pass. So let's now work together with our meditation. Let's come together in group fusion. Linking in thought as a soul, as a point of love and light, focusing on the mental plane at the center of the even arm cross. linking with all triangles members throughout the world, projecting a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy and towards the highest center. We sound together the affirmation of will. In the center of the will of God, I stand. Naught shall deflect my will from his. I implement that will by love. I turn towards the field of service. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men. Visualization. Using the creative imagination, link with two other points of light to create a triangle of light. Visualize the triangle in which you are working as an essential part of the radiant worldwide triangles network. Hold the consciousness immersed within the light of the group soul, the heart of love which underlies and infuses the network. Now project a line of lighted energy towards the world teacher, who stands as the heart of love at the center of the spiritual hierarchy and also at the heart of each triangle. Visualize the energies of love, light, and goodwill circulating in and around the triangles network. Visualize these energies unifying and eliminating all divisions within humanity, healing and transforming human consciousness, establishing right human relationships. Refocusing the consciousness on the mental plane, projecting a line of lighted energy towards the hierarchy, we sound together the mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Visualize the whole planet alight with triangles. See new triangles being formed everywhere. Distribution. Sounding the great invocation, silently or aloud. As we repeat each stanza, let's visualize the network acting as a link between the world of spiritual realities and humanity, and as a channel through which light and love and divine purpose may flow into human consciousness. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone. And now we would like to welcome Joshua and Nick. If you could turn on your videos. All right. Hey, welcome, everyone. I'm not sure why the screen. Okay, there we go. All right. So, hi, guys. Thanks
Hey,
for being
Kathy.
here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice to have you. As you both know, we're working in a transition period between the outgoing Piscean age and the incoming Aquarian age, and that Aquarius is very much concerned with group work, but we're still in the transition between these two ages. And so for young people coming in under this impulse of new energies, I wonder if each of you could share with the group your perceptions of group work and this transition period through which we're moving. If you want to start, Nick, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so group work, I think is sort of an inevitable part of the progress of human consciousness and human psychology. Group work and I guess what we understand is the Aquarian sense, which is a little less centralized and less based on a sort of strict forms, right? But I think that, because the nature of human consciousness and the nature of our psychology is we have all these thoughts and feelings inside us that define much of our day-to-day consciousness. And these thoughts and feelings, they aren't just sort of like wallpaper that's just there. They're these outward moving kind of impulses in themselves, right? I mean, a feeling doesn't just kind of sit there. It wants to be expressed in some way through words or actions, right? And, the same for many of our thoughts and ideas. And so I think that it becomes sort of on a long enough timeline, eventually it becomes a necessity for our psychic development as individuals, as well as for the benefit of the group, to sort of to have a contained and to specifically attune a group of people in a certain way that allows us to not only to not only sort of have our thoughts and our feelings to ourselves and have them try to be of good caliber, good quality, but to sort of control the actual ecosystem, I guess, that they're implicitly wanting to feed back into. And so, that involves actually working with the group itself, having a specific contained group or groups that you're part of, that sort of, gradually become more attuned with each other, and sort of, maybe vibrate in a similar fashion and have shared thought forms and stuff. That I think allows for a health of, a level of psychological health and of the prospect of individual development that wouldn't otherwise be there, because you're accounting for something that's kind of inherent in the stuff of our day-to-day thinking.
Okay, thank you. Joshua, how would you address this idea of group work?
Well, I think one of the principles or the ideas of the Aquarian age is that the seventh ray is going to be coming in more. Mm-hmm. And the quality of the sixth ray versus the seventh ray makes group work look very different. So like you have these spiritual groups, whether they're Christian or Eastern or whatever in the Piscean age, and it was very much like the teacher, the guru's up here, and then, the group is down here and is, very devoted to an outward figure. I mean, maybe sometimes the soul or something, but there was sort of a disconnect, it was very abstract. And the seventh ray is about the integration of matter and spirit, bringing them together. And I think that's what spiritual groups are trying to explore now. And one effort that me and Nick have been working on is the molecular relationship, which is a group that's trying to do just that, integrate spirit and matter. And it's sort of like as above, so also below in the the lower kingdoms in nature, in the mineral kingdom, for example, atoms come together to form a molecule, the molecules we know in nature. And then those molecules come together to form more complex proteins and so forth. And then you eventually get the plant kingdom from this unity of the lesser lives. It allows for an overshadowing of the greater life to come down. And the molecular relationship, simply put, is that principle playing out in the human kingdom, so that a group of people come together in a structured order. The molecular configuration we're working on now is 24 people, 12 men and 12 women in 4 triads coming together. But as you were pointing out in your talk earlier, it's easy to have outer groups. It's easy to just join something, right? It's like, oh, I went to this church. Oh, I'm part of the Theosophical Society. Oh, I'm with rural, it's easy to just be a part of something, but to be a part of something outwardly and at the same time to be a part of the inner group and work towards a synthesis of it is very difficult. And that's one of the main goals of the molecular relationship.
Okay, thank you. So Nick, I know that you're involved through your actual academic work with you've worked in various residential rehabs, leading groups, but now you're also involved in this molecular relationship group and other groups that have sprung out of that. And could you share with the group some of the differences and perhaps some of the similarities that you've found in between these 2 different ways of working?
Yeah. So in residential rehabs, there's, first of all, most of what you do when you're in a residential rehab is you spend a lot of time in different group sessions, group therapy sessions. And the thing about it is there's a shared thought form, right? There's a shared aspirational thought form. Everybody has the thought form of recovery in some form. And everybody's sort of working toward that particular horizon. And what's interesting about it, one comparison, and I think that the thing about recovery and the thing about rehab is that it's the aspirational ideal or thought form that you have is inherently kind of antagonistic to the way you've been doing things. It's kind of inherently saying, there's something wrong with the way that you've been doing your thinking. There's something wrong with, you have these patterns of behavior that are really not okay, and something's got to change. That's sort of implied in the very nature of the thing. And then with spiritual stuff, I think there can be sort of, that's often not there. And I think sometimes there can be actually an opposite problem where, because of the nature of the aspiration, because it's this pretty, admirable, lofty goal, there could sometimes be this sense that, there's not enough of questioning of the self. There's a little bit of a sense that because we have this aspiration, because we're gathered to do this, we're already kind of in a higher category. We're already kind of, we've got it pretty well figured out compared to most people, let's say. And so I think that there needs to be, some kind of balance there. I don't, we shouldn't treat everything like a rehab where we're trying to remold our sort of desperate selves. But I think that, there can be, as I said, the opposite problem in a lot of spiritual work sometimes. And, the individual, in a lot of ways, we are kind of the stumbling stone in group work, right, as individuals. Yeah. And I think there has to, particularly with regard to the whole, like we were outlining the difference between Piscean and Aquarian. And, in the absence of something more like a really, one strict authority, one person walking around who kind of, tells you what to do. There does need to be this vigilance on your part that, you can be, at any given moment, you might be in the wrong, right? And not to, I think it's important not to necessarily equate that with, the sort of stern talking to, the stern punishment that you might have gotten, in Piscean times for being wrong, right? I think, part of the moving forward with the Aquarian energy is, not abandoning that altogether, but just sort of saying, okay, I'm willing to say I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, maybe it doesn't even have to be a big deal. I'll just move forward and do the best I can. I'll try to correct the mistake instead of sort of equating it with this, dreading this response from the master who's going to be so mad at me. And then, because of that, maybe you sort of detach yourself from the capacity to be wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like at a rehab, we're saying, I admit that I have an issue and that I am, say, an alcoholic or an addict. Maybe the corollary in group work is that I admit that I am a personality. And, in group work, we're asked to strive to leave the personality outside the door. And, that's harder. It's a challenge,
Yeah.
So I know that you've already introduced the molecular relationship, Joshua, but could you tell us a few more fundamentals that
Sure.
underlie this project?
Well, there's a glue that holds it together, and that's basically soul contact, as you were saying in the talk. That's a really great analogy you were pointing out from Blavatsky about the fingers of the hand, because that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We can work together as family, a group of friends, co-workers, and it's usually not like a bunch of fingers of one hand, but through the soul you can really see eye to eye with people. And when I think of leaving the personality behind, it's sort of like you leave whatever your opinions or desires or personal thoughts about the situation and offer them up to God or the higher self. And maybe it turns out you're right, or maybe you're wrong, and you let them go, and whatever the intuition or the divine inspiration is, that's what's followed. And if people are doing it right, and if there's enough group cohesion in a spiritual sense, and to some degree in a personality sense, then you can move forward as one, and like the fingers of one hand, not everybody's necessarily doing the same thing. If you're holding a pen, 3 fingers are doing something different. These 2 are working closely, but they're all part of one work going forward.
Right.
And in the molecule, there's the outer form, sort of represented by the personality, which is the geometric configuration of 4 triangles, actually. So there's 3 triads, and unlike the triangles work, it's composed of 6 people. It's 3 pairs of people, 3 groups of male and female partners, because the idea is that in the atoms in nature, there's a balance between the male and feminine, the electrical positive and negative energy, that creates a balance in the atom between the electrons and the protons, or in the nucleus, if I have the technical terms right. But because we're the level of development of humanity, we don't have that balance within ourselves, and we need that the balance of male and female energy between people. Maybe someday in the future we'll move beyond it and be totally balanced within each human unit, but that's not today. So the 3 atoms, which are male-female units, come together to form a triad, and there's 4 triads in the molecule, which makes 12 atoms total and 24 members. And I was considering this the other day. Lucius Trust uploaded an old triangles video with Michael Robbins, and he pointed out something I hadn't heard before. It was the idea of the square, getting the triangle into the square. That was the goal, the triangle representing the whole, or the spiritual soul, or the spiritual triad, and the square representing the personality. And then in Masonry, they have like a triangle, and they just fold it down into the square on the ground.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me the geometry of the molecule that we're trying to manifest is it's a square. There's 4 triads, and the triads are the triangle within the square. So that was just sort of an interesting thing I noticed the other day.
Like a pyramid, in a sense.
Yeah, and it is like a pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So Nick, Joshua's given us the theory of the molecular relationship. Could you express some of the challenges or successes of working with this rather abstract idea on the physical plane. And also, if you want to share some of your thoughts on the theory of the molecular relationship first, that would be fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joshua did a pretty good job of, you know, an outline of the theory there.
Okay.
You know, I think, you know, as far as the practical day-to-day stuff, I mean, it can be difficult at times, and you know, in some of the ways that I was alluding to before. I mean, I think that especially when you're doing something very new, it can be hard for there to be for a thought form to cohere in a way that motivates people in a universal manner, right? That everybody's sort of motivated in the same way, wants to do the same thing. But that said, I think that coming up against that has actually fueled a lot of real connection, and that in a sense, I think that's helped to power what may prove to be the beginning of the actual of the plan actually coming together in terms of the molecular relationship. Because, you know, a lot of it's about soul contact. It's about people forging connections through the soul, and that sort of being poured into the structure, right? So I think that, you know, like I said, the personality or the self is the stumbling block, and I think that by coming up against that, we actually have learned to, at least many of us have learned to be sort of more soul-oriented and have forged deeper connections because of that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, do either of you have any thoughts that you'd like to share before we open it, some concluding thoughts before we open it up to the wider group, or should we just open it up?
I have a few more thoughts, though.
Okay.
One is sort of in response, somebody doesn't quite understand what we're trying to manifest. And so I'll explain a little bit more. Hopefully it'll, the molecular group is trying to create a molecule of humans, just as there's a molecule of atoms in the microcosm. And man, being the macrocosm of that microcosm, is following the same order of things, let's say. And to do that, it's trying to create a bridge for a higher life form from a higher kingdom to overshadow. You know, it's said that the higher kingdoms of nature don't know individuality, and through man will experience individuality. But just like you can't manifest as a human being in the physical without a body, so too they can't manifest without a vehicle of human beings, in a sense. And a molecule, we're trying to manifest a human molecule, which will be linked to the higher kingdoms in nature, if it's really linked, right? You know, you can pretend all sorts of things, but if there's not the real solar fusion and the real connection spiritually, then it's not there. So,
Yeah.
but
Like the triangles work, you know, we're trying as a large group to provide a channel for which spiritual energies can pour. Yeah. So, well, it's,
and so that, I mean, it's to try to become the hand to a larger body from the higher kingdoms, to put it basically. I mean, there's a lot more that could be said, but there's only so much time.
Right. Well, thank you both.
So hopefully that clarified it.
Yeah. So we could open it up now and encourage people to share their thoughts, maybe about this work, molecular relationship, or their own experiences in seeking to work with a spiritual group. If you can raise your hand, clicking on the raise hand option under reactions, I believe, or you might want to place something in the chat box. So if you, Joshua or Nick, would like to read some of the comments, that would be great.
Yeah, George asked me a direct question, so I'm not sure if you want me to respond to that publicly or not.
Oh,
well, I'm asking him, so I'll wait for him to let me know. But Riza asked, Joshua, how did you come to this thinking? Well, I assume you're asking about the molecular relationship, and it wasn't my thinking. A man named JJ Dewey, I guess he received the concept several decades ago and has been trying to work towards it in one way or another since then. I could put a
link. Yeah,
I'll put a link in the chat. You can reach out to him if you're interested in finding out more about it. But yeah, it's his intuition, inspiration, whatever you want to call it, not my thinking. I've just sort of been working at it for a few years and have learned a few things along the way, let's say.
All right. Did the person that you spoke to respond to your, no, maybe not. Nick, I know there's a comment there from Isabel. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw somebody had mentioned The Act of Will by Assagioli. And I am aware of that book, and I do want, it's one of many books that I currently very much want to read. But yeah, it's I know that book is really sort of right up our alley in terms of what we're talking about.
Okay. I see a comment from Kit. Did you see that one? Joshua, do you want to read that one? Under the one from Isabel?
What does it say? Would you mind reading it, Kathy?
Is your group trying to manifest something in particular?
Oh, I thought I had answered that already. But yeah, we're trying to manifest a vehicle for higher kingdoms of nature to manifest through humanity. And I think, it's part of the sort of externalization process, or trying to manifest the kingdom of God on earth, that sort of stuff. But I can even post the PDF of the book. It has more detailed information if you're interested in that.
I would say I just got there's a question from Suzanne. Don't you think that the soul needs the instrument and personality to bring down the higher energies down to the horizontal level? And yeah, I would definitely say that we do. I'm not at all trying to say that the personality is bad, or to be totally shunned, or that we should will its destruction. I mean, I think we absolutely need it, and it should be more or less under the control of the soul, or higher energies. I think that the important part is learning to control it in a way that isn't too effort intensive. That doesn't, where the control itself doesn't become sort of the order of the day, and takes up all the time of both entities.
There's a comment from Matthew Martin. Do you see that one?
George responded to me. He has no problem with me reading it out loud. Let me try to scroll up and find his original comment here. What if there is an unacknowledged original sin that clings to the personality? Is there a way to acknowledge without admitting? I'm not sure the distinction between acknowledgement and admitting. I think there are things that can bring it to the surface without sort of analyzing it. There's a way to clear out emotional blockages. Like when you're working with spiritual energy, it can often bring this stuff out into the surface, and sometimes it'll just come out and be done away with. Other times it'll bring it to your attention that you need to work on it. So it sort of varies, but do you have any thoughts on that, Nick, from your psychological perspective?
Yeah, it's kind of hard and off the top of my head. But I think what you said has a lot of merit.
Okay. There's a comment from Matthew Martin, if you scroll up.
If you see it, can you read it?
Sure. To unite groups, do you see that one, Nick?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Go ahead if you want to read it, and if you have anything to say in response.
Sure. So to unite groups, it is important for each group, or quote unquote molecular group, to make a subjective connection and conscious recognition of unity with the other groups, and also give our agreement to our intergroup unity. Similar with esoteric triangles, it's important that the members or groups link together subjectively as one united consciousness with the same great purpose. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think it's all about, forging the subjective level connection, the subtler or soul level connections, is sort of what, in my view, what everything's sort of leading to. Because I think once you have that established, it takes care of much of the rest. So it's sort of, a lot of stuff's going on the personality level, but it's all sort of ideally oriented toward, you know, even if it might seem, you know, at times, like on a personality level, things aren't going great, or, you know, there's drama or something. I think, you know, if we're united in, you know, focusing on sort of nurturing the right thought forms and moving forward with the same general idea, then I think it ultimately comes to nurture that soul connection, which then kind of moves outward and handles a lot of the other stuff.
I see a question here from Sue Christensen. How are you finding your male and female partners to form the molecule? Ideally, it would be a married couple, but a lot of people who are participating in the molecular group, the group trying to work on the molecule, aren't married or in a relationship with a romantic partner. So people have had sort of platonic partnerships between men and women, and basically just people in the group choose to work together, and you know, if they find out they can work together well, then they'll keep doing it, and if not, you know, look for somebody else until they can find, you know, the right relationship, the right balance there. Yeah, I had another thought. You mentioned from a younger perspective. I don't know if it's super relevant, but I get a lot of meaning out of symbols from pop culture. And, you know, Eduardo was talking about, you know, sort of modern mythology. And I think in one sense, if people are familiar with the X-Men, that's a sort of symbol of the spiritual group. It can be anyway, because they're working to try to foster right relationships between humanity and these mutants, and, you know, protect people from negative forces and stuff. There's even, and they're all training together so that they can work as, you know, a team in unison, but they all have different powers, but they're all, you know, ostensibly behind that same goal. I mean, and it really gets telling with the telepathy sometimes, because usually they'll have a telepath who like connects their minds telepathically. So it's almost like they're on an audio call when they're out in the field doing stuff like, oh, you dodge this way, you know, do optic blast or whatever. Yeah. So I think relating to the youth component, there's a lot of symbols out there in pop culture and media that really have deep spiritual resonance, or they can if you're looking for it. And that's one of them. So I figured I'd throw that idea out there too.
Right. Well, thank you both so much. We're running out of time now, and we'll just close with a moment of silence. But I just wanted to say thank you. It's very so interesting to share your insights with the group. And so congratulations on what you're doing, and good luck in the future. All right. So let's just take a moment to link with each other and all Triangle's members throughout the world in a moment of silence before we close. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kathy.
Bye.